Welcome back to IBC Live. This is your Teradek continuing coverage of the International Broadcasting Convention from Amsterdam. I'm Michael Artsis. We're in the Netherlands. It is the RAI Convention Center. Thanks so much for joining us and keeping it locked here. There's so much more to get to, not only today, but tomorrow. We'll be here, so keep it locked here. We're in the Vitek Group brand booth because Teradek is a Vitek Group brand. Teradek's a great company. Vitek's a great company. You know, man, Frodo, Sackler, Anton Bauer, Bexel, all these companies, they're all Vitek brands. There are a ton more. O'Connor, Vinton. I could go on for hours, light panels, etc., etc. You know them all, use them all, check them out. And I've got Bruce from Dalet Digital Systems here, and you guys do a really great job. I mean, we have all this capture technology, right? Teradek, you've got cameras, you've got all these different ways to capture what you're doing, right? Yep. And do it more beautifully. And all we do is increase the data amounts and the bit rates and all this stuff. And then, what do we do with it? And that's where you guys come in, your digital asset management.
That's correct.
And you make the transcoding, ingesting, capturing process, where it goes, how does it go, how do we not get it lost, how do we give it in the most amount of flavors so the most amount of people can work on it, look at it, do what they need to do with it. That's where you guys come in.
Absolutely.
Tell me about it.
So you've summarized it really well. You've made all this stuff, and that somehow there's a machine behind all the stuff that you make that gets it out to all the consumers out there. And that involves versioning the thing to get it to different territories. That involves getting it out quickly. That involves lots of people making certain that meets all the rules of compliance and certification. There's editing highlights packages. All that sort of stuff you do, the nuts and bolts of making programs, needs to be done quickly and efficiently. Now, asset management, media asset management platform, which we call Dalet Galaxy, really is a bunch of tools to make that happen slickly and easily and with a consistency of user interface so that the software does what the software's good at and the people do what the people are good at. Because one of the big things is training. If you have to retrain your operators every time they move from this tool to that tool, that costs you money for no gain. Yep. But if you can give the operators a good, consistent user interface that everything feels natural, you know what? They do more work more enjoyably, and the content that you guys make looks much better.
And it's quicker and more efficient.
It's quicker and more efficient. I mean, we should never underestimate how complicated it is getting a slick production on air quickly. I mean, pros make it look so easy, but actually there's a lot of individual little stages, each of which has to happen properly, all the way down to the very final little bit of delivering that file to the playout server or even delivering it to the origin server to get it onto the internet. Every step's got to be right.
A lot of different steps, a crazy amount of workflow, especially these days, 4K, we're talking color correction, we're talking all this stuff. You guys, your company was bought by Dalet about 6 months ago.
Yep.
You've been with Dalet about 6 months. Walk me through that and what you guys were doing and what you're doing now, how you've integrated. I think it was a really smart purchase. I think they did a good job at that. And I think it sounds like from talking to you off camera that you're really excited to be at Dalet.
Oh, I'm very excited to be at Dalet. I mean, my company was a company called Amberfin. We were a top-end transcoder. We're used by some of the big movie studios and some of the big broadcasters. And we focused on getting really good, high-quality transcodes. Now, transcodes, you might think, it's a little bit boring, Bruce. It just flips the file from one to the other. But we think of it more as manufacturing on demand. You might have made the world's best program, but you can't show it in that territory unless it's the right frame rate, the right size, it's got the right captions. You have to manufacture a package.
And that's very hard to do. You know, I started working at New York One when they first went digital. They had the first tapeless environment in the news business, and people would come visit it all the time. But complying with all the things you had to do to get it from to be able to be played in different countries, in different languages, and it was a nightmare. Their ingest process was unbelievable. So they would still, at the time, they would shoot on tape, and then it was off tape as soon as they walked in the door, and then quickly they went to shooting on P2 cards.
Yep.
But it was all about the frame rates, this stuff, that stuff, especially at that point 24p became popular, and then people were shooting stuff in PAL and 24p, and then people were shooting in 30p, and then other people were trying 60p. You have all these different frame rates, and you might have 5 shots in 60p, 5 shots in 24p. And I remember they had an entire department an entire department just to ingest. So if you'd go out and you'd report, you would walk back in with a tape and hand it to some guy, and he would take care of this entire process.
And that big machine would then take over with lots of special tooling and special people. And it's interesting you started talking about 24p, because one of the tools that we're well known for is the frame rate conversion, particularly the film and video type rates. And it's interesting that modern editors are so flexible. You can drop all these frame rates on the timeline and it will do a decent job. But with that versatility comes a bit of a penalty. Imagine that you've shot something at 24p because you wanted that film look, but you've edited it 29:9:7 because your first showing is going to be on air on video. Unfortunately, when you then go and take that stuff and go and put it online, someone like iTunes will say, well, that's a 24p original, give me the 24p back. But that doesn't exist anymore. You've edited it in video. You've put this 29:9:7 interlaced video bug, video wipe, video credit roll effects on top of the underlying film background. So you need some clever automated software to unpick all of that mess and try and give you something that's 24p clean, so that when you look at it on your iPad or on your Hulu or on your wherever, it looks like a clean filmic original by magically undoing everything you did in the editor.
It's really amazing, and it's very complicated, and you guys make it easy, but it's really important. People really overlook this all the time, and I see when there's issues, and I see when things get rejected all the time, and people never understand. You know, somebody asked me to help them with a music video about 2 years ago, and they basically hired a production company, and MTV Europe wanted the video but couldn't accept it, and the production company didn't know what to do.
Oh goodness!
To do these things. Why do we still use interlaced? I can't stand interlaced footage.
I've had hate mail by saying that interlaced was something that was invented as an analog compression scheme back in the 1930s because you couldn't get the vertical resolution without interlacing, and we should get rid of interlace. It has no place in the modern world. But having said that, you think about some of the big American networks, their entire facilities are interlaced throughout. Billions of dollars of investment. Because that's the only way that SD worked. And when they went from SD to HD, the incremental cost meant, oh, well, let's do a bit of HD interlace. We have a chance as an industry right now to go to a nice, clean, progressive Ultra HD and leave interlace and drop frame time code and fractional frame rates behind us. We can do that if we choose as an industry. But you know what? There's a lot of financial pressure to keep the old ways alive because it's just easier.
No, at some point you got to make the investment. I think it's time.
You got to move forwards.
How do people find out about you guys? They go to daletdigitalsystems.com. Is that correct?
Dalet.com.
Dalet.com.
If you want to find out about our products, we've got our products there. If you want to find out about technology and our educational series, go to dalet.com/blog to read our educational blog. And if you don't hate my whiny voice, there's also a Bruce's Shorts educational video series there, 2-minute sound bites on one technical topic where I try to explain difficult technology in 2 minutes, including props and jokes.
I like that a lot. Your voice is not whiny at all, and I'm definitely going to check that out because I like information, and I think you have good information. You do it well and present it clearly, concisely, and jokes. Well, I'll always take jokes. So.
Yeah, you haven't heard them yet. Be careful.
And the blog sounds interesting, and of course, you want to go there to find out about the systems and what they can do for you. It's great stuff. It really works great. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here today. Tell us about this, and really remind everybody how important it is to have the right process and to make sure that the frame rates all match and all this stuff, and to be able to deliver multiple frame rates and undo them and rewrap them.
All that stuff.
Phenomenal.
Think about your end product.
Dalet.com. I'm Michael Artsis. We'll be back with a whole lot more right after this from IBC in Amsterdam. Teradek's live continuing coverage. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.